your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story with Dennis Henson. This is a brand new series we hope that you will enjoy, and it's called Body of Health. Dennis, welcome, and let us start out by telling people about, I guess best way to put it is our disclaimer.
Okay. Well, Richard, thank you so much for having me on this series. I'm really excited about doing this, but I think it's very important that everyone understand that neither of us are medical doctors or have any kind of medical training. We are just people who are very interested in health and being able to get better faster, so that if you have some problem, that gives you a place to go to find things that have worked for other people that may help you, or they may not, but there'll be something worthwhile checking out.
Body of Health is going to be here every week. The website that we're going to suggest you go to for information, number one website is dennisjhenson.com, which we will have in the audio and video podcast videocast. But there's also a Facebook location, and basically it's facebook.com/groups/body of health. Once again, facebook.com/groups, that's plural, groups/body of health. We hope that you will go there to check out the information that Dennis has provided with us. And with that, we move into Body of Health. This is Tell Me Your Story. It's the series that focuses on your health and well-being and helping to improve your health and well-being on the physical, mental, emotional, and sometimes we'll even talk on the spiritual level with yours truly, Reverend Dr. D and Dennis Henson. Dennis, welcome back. Today's program, I think a lot of folks want to be listening to, but it's good to have you back here looking at you and feeling good. And even after, without going into any detail, even after going through all of the turmoil over the last week to 10 days to 2 weeks as of our conversation, I am feeling really, really good. So these programs really help me.
Well, thank you, Richard. I really appreciate you having me, and I certainly enjoy our times together every week.
Well, today is going to be an interesting conversation because it's something I'm not sure exactly what the statistics are. All I know is that at least in my life, I have direct, I guess you could say that direct experience with this conversation having to do with cancer. And we're going to talk about combating cancer. And of course, we talked in a previous program about how to extend your life by doing the right things, and then the things to avoid. And we're going to talk about combating cancer. We aren't just talking about fighting a disease. We are talking about creating an environment where it cannot survive. Now, I know that there are those who are of the mindset, and primarily in the medical field, where they'll use the philosophy, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Now, the firsthand experience is, of course, my wife, going back to 2001. And by the way, just so folks know, her experience is the reason why my book Choices even exists. If it weren't for her in my life, that book probably wouldn't be in print today. But what's really frustrating for a lot of us, and me as an observer, is how many people, as the days and weeks and months go by, are diagnosed. It's just unbelievable. I don't know what the stats are. I don't know if it's 10% of the population or 30 or 50. I just don't know. All I know is every time I turn around, some politician, somebody in Hollywood, some notable person within academia, and so on, people that I have known. My sister had breast cancer. So this is a conversation, but we are going to preface it by reminding you, always check with your primary care physician, because we are not doctors. Okay? We've had experiences. We have been involved with people who have had different conditions, as we're going to be talking about today. So please, 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 we're offering you our observations, our perspectives. So please keep that in mind. And Dennis, what about you? Um, what connection have you within your life? Are you one person removed? Two, they talk about this whole Kevin Bacon thing and 6 degrees of separation. What's the level of your separation regarding this subject?
Well, my first cousin had breast cancer, and actually um, they told her she was not going. She only had a few months to live, and that's been 12 years ago. So, so, there are things you can do.
Hmm.
She didn't. She just refused to accept that it was time for her to go,
Yeah.
and she did a lot of things. Some of the things we'll be talking about here today, and then there's been a number of other people. I mean, it's. I would say it would be difficult to find someone that's too far removed from someone who's had cancer or who's been touched by it
Yeah.
because it's just so prevalent. But as we go through these things here today, you'll see that most people don't just normally do these things. It's not, they're not hard to do, but it's just not part of people's lives. They get busy with 1,000 other things and then let their health, which is what happened to me. You know,
Hmm.
I wasn't thinking about my health. I was thinking about my businesses and my family and the trips we were taking and all of the other things. And some of my friends came up to me and said, Dennis, we're concerned. You drink 8 or 10 Dr. Peppers a day, and your diet is terrible. You drink you have a chocolate chocolate covered cake donut every morning. I mean, you're just getting too much sugar in your diet. It's really bad. Plus, you're not getting any exercise. And I said, no, I'm fine. I feel great. Don't worry about me. The next week, I had a massive stroke. So you just, you know, if you do not take care of yourself and think about your health, it will catch up to you. It really will.
Mm.
Uh, Now, after it catches up to you, which you can study and work and get your health back. And that's what these programs are all about. I want to share some of the things that I've learned since I kind of fell off that cliff, and that's why we're doing this. Hopefully, to help somebody, maybe save a life or two, or increase the length of some people's lives, or at least improve the quality of their lives.
Well, I'll tell you, it is so important. I know that for me and the health issues that I've had, and so far, thank you very much. I have not, nothing has shown up in my blood work or other symptoms that would indicate anything along those lines. And it's not enough to sit and say, well, as my father would say, eat, drink, and be merry in moderation because no one gets out of this world alive. Well, that sounds great, except there are a lot of things that we want to do in our lives. There are things that we take on, we find our life's purpose, and we want to move forward in that. And then all of a sudden, we're told, like your relative there, yeah, you only have a few months. And of course, that was 12 years ago, and that's really incredible. Wasn't there a gentleman whose name escapes me? You probably know who it is, who was in the hospital. He's written some wonderful books, and they told him he had 6 months, and he said no, and he started watching comedies on the Three Stooges and those kinds of things, and he went on to live a number of years and wrote. I want to say Norman Vincent Peale, but I don't think that's right. Maybe it is, but you know what I'm referring to, and in terms of a mindset. That's something we'll talk about as well. So let's get started here. And what is the most powerful tool at the top of the list when it comes to dealing with and combating cancer?
My research all points to the same thing. When I walk every day, which is one of the things that'll keep you healthy, I listen to things that concern health. And when I'm preparing these programs, I also listen. One thing always comes to the top when discussing cancer, and that is fasting. Now, I'm not talking about intermittent fasting. That's number two. I'm talking about number one is a long-term fast, several days, 3, 4, 5 days. Now, these long-term fasts, you don't just jump into, you don't wake up one day and say, oh, well, I'm not going to eat for 3 days or 4 days. You have to prepare for them. And when we talk about number two, intermittent fasting, and number three, you do those things first in preparation so that when you actually do, it's not as difficult. And part of being able to do a 3 or 4 day fast is mindset, getting your mind right. You have to realize that you're going to get really hungry during the first 24, 36, 48 hours. You're going to get hungry and you're going to want to break your fast and get something to eat. You have to keep in your mind what it is you're trying to do. That the ultimate goal is to improve your health and to feel better. And there's a trick that you can do that will help when you get really hungry to mitigate that. And that's putting your tongue up to the roof of your mouth and pressing really hard. So when you're dying of hunger, or you really want a snack in the afternoon or whatever, if you can just think, clear your mind, and press your tongue up against the roof of your mouth, kind of takes away the hunger pain. And another thing is it's a water fast. Drink some water. It's amazing how drinking a little bit of water will slow your appetite and allow you to get through it. And remember, once you get past the first 36 hours, you're not really that hungry anymore. And that's true. The third, fourth, and fifth day are not nearly as hard as the first one. And you want to do this long-term fasting, this 3 or 4 days, once a month. Mm. Now, that may seem drastic, but we're talking about cancer. If you've been diagnosed with cancer, that's pretty serious. And if you can do something that will really combat it, make it difficult, because cancer cells are weak cells. They're easily killed. The reason they're cancer cells is because they're damaged. Mm-hmm. They're not the healthy cells. So they're the easiest ones to kill. And one thing that's going to kill them is to starve them. So that's number one.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, that's excellent advice. It makes sense too, from that standpoint, in terms of, as we put it, starving the cells. I know that there are certain foods we've talked about, the certain foods we'll talk about as well, in terms of this whole aspect of starving the cancer cells, of getting rid of their fuel so that eventually maybe and maybe a lot of folks, because this was something I learned years ago, that if one was able to go into one's DNA and they were able to process it, all right, that you would see that we all have the potentiality, again, the word potentiality, for certain conditions. Doesn't mean we're going to get them, but it's like that old Native American story about the black wolf and the white wolf, and obviously they represent the bad and the good, the black and the white. And of course, the statement is asked, well, how do you determine which one lives and which one doesn't? It says, it depends upon which one you feed. So that's kind of what we're talking about here, is this potentiality, and whether or not you do certain things that sort of pushes the potentiality further back, as opposed to eating the junk food and not staying away from the white foods, as we've talked about in the past, and so on and so forth. Also, there are environmental issues. We'll talk about that as well. But it's just really, to me, very interesting. So let's move on here. So, what else? What is next on the hit parade, as it were?
Well, the second one is kind of the same. It's intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what fasting does for you is it triggers autophagy, which means your body realizes there's no food coming in, and it panics and it starts eating itself. So what it eats first is the stored fat. Well, inside that stored fat is every bad thing that your body has killed over the past, last time, probably since the last time you fasted. There's a lot of bad stuff there. So once the body starts eating that, it it recycles, it destroys all of the bad stuff, and you get it out of your body, which is really a good thing. Now, the interesting thing about the intermittent fasting is it's just so simple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was shocked. To me, it was nothing. I simply just stopped eating breakfast. So I wouldn't have anything from 8 o'clock in the evening. I would eat my last meal, no snacks after that. And then I wouldn't eat anything until the next day, maybe 12:30 or 1 o'clock, which gives you like 16 or 17 hours of fasting every day. Well, I thought this is so easy. I continued continued to do it. I'm not very big to start with. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe my average weight's like 152, 155 or something like that. Well, when I had to change my pant size from a 34 to a 33, and then the 33s didn't fit, I thought, well, maybe this intermittent fasting is not a good thing over the long term, which is, if you just do it occasionally, it serves the purpose. So it's not something that you have to do. Although I have a good friend who only eats lunch every other day. He doesn't eat breakfast. He doesn't eat dinner. And he's been doing this for years and years, and he's
Mm-hmm.
healthy as it can possibly be. But he takes it to another level. I don't know if that would be something that I would want to try to put into my routine, just
Yeah.
eating every other day, because I enjoy eating too much. But the intermittent fasting is it's simple. Uh, it it lowers insulin. Like if you have diabetes, that's something that you really want to consider doing. And since it's so easy to do, why not give it a shot and see how that comes out for you?
Well, now that's interesting because the process of doing that is um, rather interesting for me in particular because my wife is very concerned about my health and well-being. She wants to make sure that every day that I eat, in other words, she doesn't want me to start feeling as though I'm dizzy, and because I haven't had anything to eat, that my blood sugar gets too low, and so on and so forth. And that's a I don't know if that's a something that we want to talk about in that regard because it's to me um, it's really really important to think about from that standpoint is in addition to what you're talking about in terms of our health and well-being in terms of not feeding the cells that we're wanting to combat here,
Well, the
but we also want
intermittent
to make sure that we don't pass out while we're walking across the living room floor.
well, you're not reducing your calories when you're doing intermittent fasting. You're just changing the time that you have the calories.
Hmm.
So um, I must have been reducing calories because I lost a lot of weight really fast. Well, there's lots of people in this world that would just love to lose weight really fast, and seems to me like an easy way to do it. But I was still very healthy. I felt very good. I could still walk all my steps every day. And, I continued to to improve. My health continued to improve while I was doing it. So I feel like it's a very healthy thing. But, like you said earlier, we're not doctors. And before you do, especially that long-term fasting, you certainly should talk with your physician. It's not something that you should just do, but it's something that you should consider and maybe put that in your bag of tricks if your doctor approves to do the long term, either monthly or quarterly. I do it like quarterly. Um, and the intermittent fasting, maybe you could just do that, occasionally.
Yeah.
Maybe you do the long-term fast once a year, and you can do the intermittent fasting quarterly. You talk with your physician and come up
Yes.
with a plan, and if they agree, that would certainly be something I think I sincerely believe that would prevent the cancer if you already have it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that's going to reverse it
Yeah.
or
And
have you.
again, the bottom line is just what you just stated is check with your primary care physician to definitely see what's going on. Our next segment we'll get into in just a moment is going to deal with a little bit into that avoidance of the white foods. We'll talk about that as we continue. We're talking with Dennis Henson. I'm Reverend Dr. D. This is Body of Health. Please go to bodyofhealth.life. Find out more about the things that are available for you to help to improve your health and wellness, to improve your quality of life. Also, go to dennisjhenson.com. Across the top, there's a tab called Health. Click on it. And there are a couple things. Number one, if you scroll down a little ways, you can then link to the Facebook group, which is Body of Health. Become a member of that group. I'm sure there are all kinds of discussions and information that folks are sharing from their perspective, their observations. Maybe some of them are doctors, but the bottom line is you always want to check with the one who is helping you and facilitating your health and wellness in your life, whoever your health practitioner is. But then if you scroll down further, you will find information that we have been talking about throughout this series for Dennis. My goodness, can you believe it's already been nearly 3 months? More than that, actually. We're here. We are into April, heading into May, and so forth. 4 months, and just incredible. Wrapping up in one sense, the first third of 2026, if you can believe that. So please check it out and to stay with us as we continue here on the Body of Health program. It's the series on Tell Me Your Story. Dennis Henson and yours truly, Richard Dugan. We are talking about combating cancer. Just that quick reminder, we are not doctors, so please check with yours. Dennis, it's time now to move on to an area that we have talked about in the past, in particular regarding white sugar. So, what's that element there in terms of number three?
Number three is eliminating sugars and starches from your diet. And as we talked about in the past, and it's on the website also, the first thing to do is eliminate all of the white foods from your diet, which would be sugar, table salt, not sea salt, but table salt, white processed flour, and unfermented dairy products, which would be like sweet milk and buttermilk, things that are not fermented. Now, actually, kefir and yogurt, you can leave those in your diet because they have some benefits. But sugar is really, really bad for you. But there's some wonderful replacements now that taste just like sugar. And once you start using those and eliminate the sugar, you really won't be attracted to sugar anymore. Once you get away from the habit, you'll something will be put in front of you, a piece of cake or some candy, and you can smell the sugar, and it's not attractive. It's not something that you want. You want to go back and get the sweetener that doesn't contain bad stuff. And then table salt is poison. I mean, just stay away from table salt, where you do want to use Celtic salt and sea salt, Himalayan salt, because they have some things in there that your body really needs, a number of minerals. The very best one is the Celtic salt. And everything that we mention on here where I say this is really important, if you go to bodyofhealth.life, those things are all there. I worked with my team. I said, look, we can't just tell these people, here these things. They need to be able to go and find the entire system in one place.
Hmm.
So if you go to bodyofhealth.life, the first thing you'll see is our store. It's got the mushroom coffee. It's got Celtic salt. It's got everything that we speak about on these radio programs. Easy to get, reasonably priced, and the very best quality I could find. Now, they're not always going to be the cheapest. I mean, but you can't get the best quality and the cheapest at the same time. But we did, we came as close as possible.
Well, there's that old saying that in a commercial years ago regarding motor oil. There's the mechanic sitting there putting changing the actually doing a major job on this one vehicle, and he's holding up that can and saying, "You can pay me now," holding up the oil can, "or you can pay me later." And it's kind of the same difference here. Now, I understand, that we're dealing with some interesting economics and all of that stuff, but it really kind of comes down to that is how much do you want to spend down the road? Again, it goes back to even what my father used to say about the car in relation as well as your house, not just to mention your body. He says, if you take care of the basic maintenance, in other words, change the oil, the filter, put the grease into the, I believe they're called zerts. They're in the underneath the car there for your chassis and all that stuff. You do the basic maintenance, and when you pay that car off, that's all you're going to be paying because then the car is still going to be running well and smooth and all that good stuff. Whereas if you don't and you put off the oil changes until 10,000 miles or 15 or you wait until your indicator comes on, your engine light comes on and says, you're out of oil and your engine's hotter than a pistol. And now you've got some major issues. So it's the same principle. Please understand it's a principle. I'm not suggesting anything in the other than take care of what you have now, and also listen to your body. We talked about that as well in terms of listening to your body. Last week, I think we talked about that one aspect. And guys don't tend to do that, although they're aware, but they don't do anything about it because, well, we're guys and we tough it up and, we put on our big boy pants and we go do our thing. And then the next thing you know, maybe they have a stroke, maybe they have a heart attack. Who knows? Um, and it then reduces that quality of life.
Right. Before we leave this one, let me mention the benefits of removing these things. I forgot to say the white foods and processed carbohydrates. Now, once you remove those white foods and the processed carbohydrates, you're going to starve your cancer. It's not going to have the fuel and octane to grow. It's going to die. And it prevents insulin spikes, especially if you have diabetes. That was something that you'd mentioned
Hmm.
that you do not want to have. And so the way to do this is just clean out your pantry. You
Yeah.
know, remove the breads that have the processed flour and potatoes and sugar, and replace them with leafy greens and healthy fats.
Yeah.
You can eat steaks and salad. That sounds pretty appetizing to me. A nice salad with olive oil and a big juicy steak. You maybe in the past you've heard that's not good for you, but the opposite seems to be the truth. Steaks are actually prepared properly, really good for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that each one of us has to make those determinations as to the things that we're going to incorporate into our lives and the reasons why we're doing it. And in this case, it's really sad. I will say that, Dennis, I saw I've seen several documentaries. My wife loves watching these. I'm not as much of a fan myself, but nonetheless, um, what is so interesting is that the the process of finding foods that we can eat for some is getting more and more difficult in many instances based upon these documentaries. I mean, it's almost as though there's nothing out there that we can eat anymore. Because these documentaries go down this list, especially for folks who may be on a limited or low income and that kind of thing, because they don't feel they can afford these things. But here's one beautiful thing I can tell you about, and that is that farmers markets are just incredible when it comes to leafy greens and those kinds of things that you just were talking about. We have in Santa Barbara, California, the farmers markets with Santa Barbara, and I co-host a program with the general manager thereof, and they have a program where they will match up to, I think it's $15 your purchase at the farmers market. In other words, for you spend $15 and you'll actually be able to purchase $30 worth of food. And that's with one of these EBT cards, that people get. And so it is possible. You do have to make the effort, and that's really what it's all about. By the way, if you are struggling, as I have for a while there, in regards to giving up the sweet stuff in your morning coffee, I myself have switched to this Morning Clarity Sweet Companion at bodyofhealth.life, and it's the ketogenic way to get the flavor that you love without feeding the growth engine of the cancers. And by the way, you can get a little discount there if you use the word radio, RADIO. You'll save a few dollars if that's what you're looking at doing. We're going to save some time here by taking a pause here to remind you you are listening to Body of Health, the series, here on Tell Me Your Story. This is Body of Health. I'm Reverend Dr. D. He is Dennis Henson, and we are not doctors. Just a reminder for you. We're talking about combating cancer. And so, what we're going to do is move on to our next element. And I will tell you, Dennis, that this is a morning regiment for me once I've got my coffee prepared. Now, I'll still go into the refrigerator and grab some organic orange juice and just take a couple of swallows with my vitamin D tablet or capsule. That's what we want to talk about next. Why is that important? What's the deal with vitamin D? Why can't I just go outside and stand in the sunlight for a half hour?
Well, actually, you can, 30 minutes in the sun, but who's got 30 minutes? I
Yeah,
mean, if
yeah,
you walk every day and you're in the sun, but the sun doesn't shine every day. So, it's like if you have these things on your roof that generate electricity, if the sun's not shining, you're not generating any electricity. And it's
right.
the same way with your body. But if you can get in the sun for 30 minutes every day, that's the same as 50,000 IUs of D3, which is really healthy. It's really wonderful for you. But you need to supplement if that's not possible. So like you said, the first thing I do every morning is pop 4 or 5 of the 5,000 I use in my mouth and chew them up because D3 is just so good for you. And I know there's some talk, but if you do a lot of study, you realize that you probably can't take too much. But do your own study, talk to your doctor. If you have a heart attack or a stroke or you get really sick, go to the hospital. First thing they're going to do is put an IV in your arm with a saline solution, which is salt. Right?
Hmm.
We've already talked about you need to get your Celtic salt, so that's good. And the next thing they're going to do is give you 50,000 to 150,000 of D3. Well, now can't you just do that yourself?
Yeah,
Can't you just take Celtic salt every day and take the D3 and kind of get ahead of the curve? That's
right,
what I do. In
right.
addition to being in the sun for an hour, if possible. Now, if it rains or snows, I still walk, but there's no sun. So maybe
Hmm.
I'll take a little extra D3. But the more research you do, the more you're going to see D3. And if you want to really kick that up a notch, take K2 with it because they work together to improve your blood and make and fight cancer.
Mm.
Um,
K2, why am I thinking? For some reason, I'm making the connection between K2 and carrots. Is that, I have a feeling I'm not right on the money there. I know there's a particular vitamin, carotene, and all of that stuff. Are there any particular that you're aware of, any particular foods, greens and so forth, where you can get K2 as well as take maybe the supplement?
well, it's yes, it's in several foods. What I would do if I wanted to increase the K2 is just go to Google or Google Gemini and say, give me a list of foods, and then try to work those into your diet. You know, I rely on Google Gemini a lot. Anytime I have a question, I've formed the habit of putting the question down, putting
Hmm.
it in either record it or I put it on an email and send it to myself so that the next day, Google Gemini is one of my people that I delegate to. I
Hmm.
have a secretary, I have a personal assistant, I have a bookkeeper, I have a number of assistants that are in other areas,
Hmm.
but I've also made AI one of my assistants.
Yeah.
I have a list of things that go for that too.
Now that's interesting because I'm doing the same thing, and again, it's still on me. I'm still responsible 100%. AI is not, okay. So in this instance, you always want to check with your doctor. In my instance, if I had a CPA or I had an accountant or somebody that could go over my taxes, I actually used AI to assist in finding all of the necessary information rather than having to flip through that instruction book, whether it was a PDF or I had it in my hands to help me do my taxes. And what's so fascinating is the process that I went through and the conversation. I was talking with AI. All right. I mean, I was doing the vocal version. So we were actually having a conversation because typing it in takes too long for me. And I would ask questions sometimes in different ways to get the
Right.
same answer. And then I said, Could you do the math on that one and add those up or do the subtraction or whatever?" And then they would give the number and I would put that into the field. And I go to, "Hey, on line 5, it says this and it says read the instructions. Okay, so what is this one about? Oh, that doesn't apply to me. Okay, 0, and so forth. AI can be very helpful, but again, it still comes down to me. AI is not going to join me in an audit if I get an audit. So keep that in mind. Hey, this is Tell Me Your Story. This is the Body of Health program. We are talking about combating cancer, and we're going to continue doing so with Dennis Henson. He is the author of the Real Impact Daily Inspiration series, and it is a series. We're waiting for books 2 and 3 to come out. We'll talk more about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. It is the Body of Health series here on Tell Me Your Story. We're talking about combating cancer. So, Dennis, here's one that I was actually taking a nice warm shower the other day, and this actually popped into my mind, and it actually kind of scares me a little bit, only because, boy, that's going to be a heck of a shock. What's this business? How does this relate to the process of combating cancer, the cold therapy?
Well, it's shock therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It shocks your mitochondria into a high efficiency mode. So it's not difficult to do. It's only difficult if you allow yourself to dread it. Now, the easiest way to get the shock of a cold shower is to just get ready and get in the shower without the water on. Okay. So you're concentrating on getting into the shower and getting ready, and then you reach up and turn the knob on. Now it's too late. You didn't have to think, you didn't have to dread it. It's just hitting you. And so I let it run cold until it gets warm, which usually takes 30, 40 seconds or something, but it's done what it needs to do. It's shocked your body and created a change that makes your body really work hard because you have to keep the temperature. You have to keep the constant temperature of like 97.6 or something like that. So when that cold water hits your body starts working really hard to bring your temperature back up to where it needs to be.
Mm.
Well, that's like working a muscle. You know, if every day that you do this over and over, after about a week, it's nothing anymore. I used to, my wife and I go to a lot of resorts,
Hmm.
and they have spas. So for years, you go to the spa and it had this cold dip, and I would put my foot into it, and I would just, oh, I can't think anybody in their right mind get in there. And then I would sometimes see people get into that cold dip, and I think, how can they do that? Well, after I got on the health kick, I decided I'm going to learn how to do that. Well, it's so simple.
Hmm.
There's steps that take you down into the cold water. You walk down the steps and it comes up to your neck, and then you just put your head under the water. So you do not think about the cold water. You think about the steps.
Mm.
So I go to spas now and I see these ladies and guys come in, they put their toe in there and they go, oh, how can anybody do that? And I just walk over there and walk down the steps and dip in the water. And I think, how do you do that? Well, it's all about your thought process. If you
Mm.
if you think, oh, this is freezing, I can't do it. Well, you can't. But if you just think, I'm going to walk down those steps till I get to the bottom. Well, once you're at the bottom, your body has already started making the changes that's going to make it so that it's not painful anymore. It actually is really exhilarating. In fact, the biggest complaint I have now when we go to resorts is that the cold dip is not cold enough.
Oh,
Because,
really?
yeah, if it's not cold enough, you don't get the endorphins.
Ah.
But if it's really, really cold and you walk down there and you dip your head, you're going to come out feeling great. I mean, you're going to feel like you can wet the world. So we'll usually go in and another complaint I have is that the spa is not hot enough.
Ah.
So I want it to be 170 or 180 degrees, and I'll lay in there for 30 minutes, and then I'll go get in that cold dip. And man, you're just a different person. After you do that, then you lay out on one of those benches and listen to the music, watch the ocean. That's life. I mean, that's life at its fullest. And
Yeah.
it's so healthy for you. I
Yeah.
mean, it really, really does change your ability to fight off disease and to feel good and be able to continue to live a comfortable life even up into your 80s and 90s.
It'll definitely get you excited. There's no question. Two things. One is, I think it was my first wife and I can't remember where we were, but it was some resort somewhere. Could have been our honeymoon, and they had the hot tub next to the pool. Now, this was not hot and cold per se, but the hot tub, of course, was whatever it was, 120, 100. I don't know what the temperature was. And then the pool was just room temperature or whatever the outside air temperature was. And I would actually go from one to the other. And it was a little bit, it was nothing like what you're describing, but it was a little bit of a shock. And of course, then there's the other thing talking about spas. I used to go with my present wife, Amrita, and we would go to this one place there in Santa Barbara where they had an infrared sauna.
Yes.
Very interesting process. So we would do a couples massage, and then we would, I think you did the massage, you did the sauna first, then you did the massage. Regardless, that was really a lot of fun. It was enjoyable because it was a couples massage, but also the experience of doing that. It's just fascinating. Hey, before we wrap things up, I want to have you share with us very quickly about these two websites in regards to body of health, and then also give some people a little reading material. Give us insights on that real quickly here before we wrap things up.
Well, if you go to bodyofhealth.life, it's the first thing you see are the products that we put together, but then there's a tab there that has a review of all of our radio programs. So if you didn't get all the things we're saying today, in fact, some of the things that we meant to say, we may have skipped over, but in the summary of defending against cancer. It has it all there, and then it has the products highlighted, and you can get them. You don't have to get them from us. It's just important that you get them. Like the D3, it doesn't matter if you purchase it from, Body of Health. That
Hmm.
having the Body of Health logo in there doesn't mean a thing. You just need to get the D3 and start to use that because it's really strong in killing the cancer cells.
Hmm.
And and the other things that we mentioned, we try to make sure that they're all there and available because if you decide, well, I would like to do this system, it looks like it's going to work. It looks like it's going to make me live longer, feel better, have less disease and cancer in my life. I don't want you to have to go and do a lot of research to find where do I get the Celtic salt or the D3 or whatever. It's there, And if you can find it for less or better, that's okay. Do it later or earlier, but you have the system available to you. Now there's two websites, dennisjhenson.com, which is my entire life. It has real estate if you want to learn to do real estate. It has health, and it has other things. If you want to go there, click on the health link, and you get pretty much the same thing. Or you can go to bodyofhealth.life, and that's all about health. Or if you want to improve your business career or your success, you can go to realimpactbook.com, which is where you can buy my books. Um, the main one is Real Impact Daily Inspiration. It's a book that helps you form the habit of reading something positive every day, which is also good for your health. If you're a positive person, you're going to live longer and feel better than if you're constantly worrying about something. That's the worst thing that you can do for your health. So you want to change that habit. You want to change the habit from being someone who complains and worries to someone who looks forward to life and feels good about it, and it's basically a happy person.
Mm. Well, I'll tell you what, it's to me very important that we make these adjustments and these changes and so forth to better our lives, our health, our wellness, all of that good stuff. And please consider doing some of these things. Again, always consult with your physician before diving in and so forth. Because the one thing that you have to gain just by starting to think about these things. I mean, we hear about all kinds of stuff, Dennis, and we don't necessarily do anything about them. And that's what I say about this program. Once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. And someday, you'll have to deal with it. Well, with this kind of stuff, it's definitely worth dealing with today rather than waiting till tomorrow. Again, I'm going to go back to that old saying, you can pay me now or you can pay me later. And Dennis, we're going to continue this series, this particular conversation in part two next week here on the Body of Health. Please go to bodyofhealth.life and dennisjhenson.com. Dennis, we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for having me, Richard. I look forward to seeing you next week.
And folks, we look forward to having you with us here on Tell Me Your Story with the Body of Health series. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to all. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. To my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.